Hello there. My name is Binyamin Shalom. I was selected by the heirs of Tzvi Pregerson to be the translator for this truly monumental work. It was a humbling experience, and I was honored to be the one chosen to finally convey this work of art to the English-speaking world. Certainly hope it finds its audience. It's more than deserving of it, and is timely now as ever. I wanted to read a passage from the first section of the book, seeing as the heirs have covered quite well the second half, selecting the passage I myself would have selected at the Ohel, of course, and I wanted to give readers a taste perhaps of what was lost tragically in the second half of the book when the Nazis arrived. So this is from the first half of the book. It's Solomon's wedding party back in Hadej. It's page 198 from the book. At this point, it seems to Binyamin that the people gathered at the party have perhaps had a bit more to drink than they ought to have. However, he is in fact the only one to have yet exaggerated in that department. Pesya Nechama placed the stuffed fish on the table, and Golda Ginsburg is now lending a hand. Generously filled bowls now appear on the table, and each one is piled high with fragrant, peppery fish. Suddenly the groom, Solomon, rises from his place of honor at the head of the table and embraces his mother Pesya, embracing her and kissing her and offering her a glass of wine. Mother, let us drink l'chaim. Pesya's cheeks turn red, and a smile of pleasure and satisfaction illuminates her face from within. L'chaim, Mazel tov to you, my son. She sips from the glass in her hand and turns back to the fish. However, Solomon, that rash young man, is not letting her go. He embraces his mother and follows her all around the tables. Binyamin spots this Jewish mother, and he too quickly rises from his seat. L'chaim, man Pesya. L'chaim tovim u'lashalom. Everything is now getting covered by that fog. Berta Abramovna begins regaling Binyamin with stories from her life in Poltava some 40 years ago. She came from a good family, and her father was one of the wealthy men in Poltava. Already as a young girl, she knew both English and Yiddish and how to play the piano. But the winding road of man was indeed rather puzzling. About 35 years ago, this young girl had begun to frequent the Zionist circles of Poltava. The footsteps of the Messiah could then be heard going forth in the world, and the redemption was on its way and making rather hasty strides. One evening, at one of those gatherings, she met Shapira, who had come with his father from Hadej on business and had also gotten swept up in the flow of things. From time to time, he would give speeches about the destiny of the nation and its future. Indeed, he was something of a minor leader, and his brief speeches made quite an impression. Berta Abramovna is recalling those days back then. The fog continues to grow thicker and thicker. The mighty roars of the gypsy father of the bride seem to now be coming from some far-off place. Oi, woe is me, for I love the trickster from Odessa. Reb David the Shochet has not yet given his speech, but little by little the decisive moment seems about to arrive. And now we hear his voice. For what do you think, you barefoot kids, you heathen vermin? Do you think this is the end of all mankind? Here there stands before you this one-eyed shochet, and he is going to demonstrate the force in his arms for you. Do you see this kanchik here? Oi, beware, you rash clowns, you well-educated heretics. Do you think that you've conquered the entire world, and that the master of the universe, the Holy One, blessed be he and blessed be his name, has been defeated and cast down, as it were, from his glorious throne, and that his place has been taken by secularism and apostasy? Not in the least. This much your old shochet can clearly tell you all. We still have our God up in heaven. And Reb David the shochet casts around with those blind eyes of his with a victorious look. He has fulfilled his obligation. He put the fear of God in them, those barefoot, rotten, heathen vermin. He tossed them into the dust, and now not one of them dares to open his mouth and go on hooting away. Yes, that old man was a member of the circle of great warriors. L'chaim, Reb David, says Berman, as he hands the glass to the blind shochet. Golda, with those reddish cheeks of hers, extends her modest motherly smile in every direction, that dearest of all young women, and Shotlin refuses to heed any of their pleas. He continues to let loose with his pleasant growling, "Os ich hab mich doch eingeliebt in ein Odessa Charlatan." And now every member of the party that evening, both young and old alike, began to make their pleasant voices heard. Ezekiel Leuchten breaks out with a Russian song, and there are those among the party who join in with him on the tune. The suffering and hardship of the mother who is in the process of losing her little girl suddenly assails Raisa Isakovna, and she falls on Firochka's neck in tears. Now it is the turn of Aaron, the cemetery attendant. He starts with a heartbreaking Hasidic song that is bound to get everyone on their feet. The song hits its target and manages to unite all those assembled, old and young alike. At first their feet are simply beating away mightily to the rhythm of the tune underneath the tables. Then those same feet make their way into the middle of the room. Everyone assembled, aside from the invalid Shapira, has now risen from their chairs, and a fiery Hasidic dance circle is now blurring all the lines between them. That evening our hero Binyamin was also one of the fervent dancers in the group. Quite a few years have now passed since then, and he can still well recall the wedding night of his friend and brother Solomon. He recalls that first dance and the various dances that followed, and the warm night that stood out in the garden alley and peeked in through the windows. And he recalls the old man Shapira, who remained seated at the table with a worried look on his wrinkled face.